to item 3B on the agenda, which is an interview of Mr. Rick West, the Deputy Superintendent for Troy School District. Good evening. And on behalf of Bloomfield Hills Schools, I would like to welcome you to this interview for the position of superintendent. Rick West is the Deputy Superintendent of the Troy School District in Troy, Michigan. I will take a few moments to briefly describe our format. I see you have something that you'd like to pass out. When I'm done with this, I will ask you to do that. Okay. I will take a few minutes to briefly describe our format. We have allotted 90 minutes for the interview. We won't start that timer until we're done with all this introductions and formality. There will be 20 questions from the board. Toward the end of the interview, time permitting, we will give you the opportunity to ask questions of the board, make a closing statement. We will let you know if time is becoming an issue and there's a need to pick up the pace of the responses. We're going to set the timer for 90 minutes, and when we get down to 20 minutes, we'll turn the clock around to show you to let you know that you're down to 20 minutes. For those watching this interview in the audience, we welcome your feedback. Feedback can be provided by completing the paper forms available in the room and turning them into Mr. Tim Stein of the Michigan Leadership Institute. Feedback with the Board of Education can also be shared by scanning the QR code or completing the electronic form, which can be found at bloomfield.org/feedback. Although the task of choosing our next superintendent is the responsibility of the Board of Education as the elected representatives of our community, we value and seriously consider the input of all of our stakeholders in the process. I will pause, starting with the 2 questions, until you've had the opportunity to pass out your materials. All right. We will now begin our timer. I'm going to start with 2 opening questions, and then we're going to go around to each trustee, and they will each ask 3 questions. And then at the end, we will hopefully have time for an opportunity for you to ask questions of us. So the first opening question, Mr. West, the board has had the opportunity to review your application materials, but many audience members have not. Please briefly review your background and share what makes you interested in becoming the superintendent of Bloomfield Hills Schools. Well,
thank you very much for the opportunity, President Hill and members of the Board of Education. It is truly an honor. I am humbled and honored to be here tonight to interview for what I believe genuinely to be the most coveted job in public education in the state of Michigan. Being the superintendent of Bloomfield Hills Schools would certainly be an honor of a lifetime, and I am excited to be here. A little bit about myself. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't start with that I'm a loving husband to my wife Angela of 17 years almost, and then a father of 3 lovely kids, pre-adolescents. So we are challenged by the opportunities that exist in parenting right now. So what's most relevant probably to you now is I am also an educational leader. I have devoted my entire adult career to educational leadership. As you can see by my resume, I have served in 3 different school districts of all different sizes. I began my career at Atherton Community Schools, where I spent 3.5 years directly assisting the superintendent in the day-to-day operations of there as their business manager. I also, I'm not sure if I referenced it, but I also served a brief stint there as their interim superintendent, much like you going through a process here. You need a superintendent, so you appoint an interim. I was honored to serve in that capacity at Atherton. For growth opportunities, I accepted a job at Royal Oak Schools, where I served there for 3.5 years as well, also serving on the superintendent's cabinet and directly assisting him in the day-to-day operations, specifically as the finance and operations executive director there. Then I have been blessed to serve the last 9.5 years at the Troy School District, serving in the roles of Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, as well as currently serving as their Deputy Superintendent. And excellent experiences throughout my entire career. I think it's important, and it's riddled throughout the plan that I've given you, my 90-day plan, and I think it's important to note 4 key takeaways from my career. I'll try to condense it into 4 really focused areas that I've taken away, and I could attribute it to the 4 superintendents I've worked for, or the 3 districts, but nevertheless, they are students matter. Okay, students matter. I learned that in the very first day, and this is a true story. Our first superintendent that hired me into public education, we had students in the room. He would ask the students, who's the most important person in this room? It'd be filled with board members. It was filled with administrators. And he reminded them, and I've never forgot it, he pointed to them and said, no, you're the most important person in the room. I'll never forget that, and that is a focus area that I bring with me and a lens of which I work. Second is relationships matter. We have to build relationships. We cannot do these jobs alone. And I have been able to cultivate a number of wonderful relationships from the start of my career to now that I continue to treasure, and they're long-lasting. We do this work together. The outcomes matter. People look to perception data, they look to real data, they look to the outcomes. Student achievement matters. It's how we're evaluated as a school district, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's how it's what people look at. It's why people buy houses in Bloomfield Hills schools. Outcomes matter. It's why kids go on to college and career ready, because of the outcomes. And the final thing is, and the reason why I'm really here, is leadership matters. And those are my 4 takeaways. I think I expect I'll have an opportunity to kind of talk more about those four areas, and that's really the lens of which I bring to the work. So, why Bloomfield Hills? You know, one could, I guess luck is defined as when preparation meets opportunity. And so perhaps it's just luck, but I can tell you the preparation I just talked about, the three districts, the 16-plus years career in directly assisting superintendents in the day-to-day activities, coupled with the job, the opportunity that presents itself here tonight, is really why I'm here. I reviewed in great detail when it came out in February, I believe, late February, the candidate profile. I know the MLI process quite well. I've studied superintendent's interviews, as weird as that sounds, for years, decades, knowing that I long to be one. And I studied this opportunity in particular. And as I looked at the candidate profile, and I don't need to reiterate it to you, and evaluated against my experiences and the preparation for the job, I thought they aligned quite nicely. And as I started with, I shouldn't have to tell any of you, this is a destination district. It's in your profile. It's in the position announcement. It is a destination district. I'm at Troy, a high-achieving, high expectation district. And in a lot of ways, in my evaluation and my study and my research of the district, it mirrors what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish at Troy. So that's really why. And I already said students mattered, and it can sound cliche, quite frankly, but my leadership will bring a student-centered focus. We have to evaluate not only the student achievement, but the student experience. And that's the lens of which I'll bring, and I am honored again to be here interviewing for what I truly believe is the most coveted job the state has to offer right now.
Thank you. The second question is, given your understanding of the Bloomfield Hills School District, what is the most critical short-term priority we need to address, and what is the most critical long-term priority we need to address? How would your background and skills help us address these short and long-term priorities?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the question being right there. It will save me some writing. I have, as I mentioned, as I'm sure, given the uptick in my profile views on LinkedIn, many people have been looking at who I am and what I am. I've been doing a lot of research of Bloomfield Hills School District, not only through the website, but I'm a relational person, so I've made contacts that and people here have been gracious with their time of just answering my question. What do you like about Bloomfield? What are the opportunities that exist? And I would say, from a short-term standpoint, I really believe there's great opportunities. From what I know, again, it'll take an evaluation period, and I outline how I'll evaluate and what I'll do in my first 90 days. But I believe there's an opportunity to bring some coherence to the school district, some leadership. I mean, it's not a secret that you've had 2 interim superintendents over the course of this year. Four, I think, over the course of the 4 years. So I believe there's some need for stability, and there's some need for some coherence. There are pockets of excellence all over. It's in your points of pride. It's in the research. It's on the webpage. And bringing that together under a framework, a cohesive framework where everybody is united and working in the same, toward the same goals, in the same direction, I think is important. And I put that's probably short-term and long-term, quite frankly, but I do believe there's opportunities there to make quick work of it. We have great experience in Troy of doing this. It's a coherence framework from Michael Fullen, where you focus direction, you cultivate a collaborative culture, you deepen learning, and then you hold people accountable to it. And I think we can study that a little bit and bring some of that here. And I in my research, I glean that maybe that's an opportunity. The long term, and when I say long term, I say, 1 to 5 years. I want to be your superintendent for a long time. I'm not near retirement eligible. I'm not desirable for that. I have a long career ahead of me, and I am looking forward to leading for a long time. So when I talk about long term, I would love to lead the process of a long-term strategic planning. I've seen some of the stuff on the website of where you might be, but I think there's opportunity under new leadership, in connection and collaboration with all stakeholders, to really dive in and look at what a strategic plan would look like to really lead the district and drive the district for the years to come.
Thank you.
And my background's, let me just answer briefly the second part of the question. I alluded to it. We have been doing this work for the last decade in Troy. I have had an opportunity, as I mentioned, when I'm talking about directly assisting superintendents in the day-to-day and strategic visioning of school districts. We have had an opportunity both at Atherton, Royal Oak, and now at Troy to engage in this process. It's a powerful process. It's a process that brings people together, and it's a process that allows us to move forward together.
Thank you. We will start with Trustee Van Gambert's questions.
Good evening. I'll have 3 questions that pertain to district relations. Maintaining healthy relationships with school and community stakeholders is important to the Board of Education. Please share with us how you have gone about building and maintaining successful relationships with all members of the school community.
Yeah, it is important. Strong schools equal strong communities, and strong communities equal strong schools. I truly believe that. I think we are the backbone of a community. That's, again, why people move here. So cultivating those relationships, engaging with those stakeholders is going to be paramount to the new superintendent. I've laid it out in my plan. I would plan to engage with all stakeholders. I think in just a quick count, we were up to 30, and you'll see it in my presentation as well. We're up to 30 plus organizations, PTOs, Kiwanis, Rotary, interfaith councils, all of it. I will be visible. I will be accessible. I will be responsive to the needs of the community, and I will engage with them. They'll know me, I'll know them, and I will be a staunch advocate for what we're doing. I'll be selling what we're doing. I'll be highlighting what we're doing. I will be celebrating successes all along the way. I'll be telling our story. When we don't tell our story, others will. And we want to control that message. We want it to be positive, and engaging with stakeholders, building those relationships are critically important. Throughout my career, I have had the unique opportunities to do that. I currently serve as Deputy Superintendent. I serve as the liaison to our PTO President's Council. It's the presidents of the 21 school buildings. I am their liaison. I attend their quarterly meetings. I'm visible, as I can be at in my current role at extracurricular, co-curricular events, and I think that's important. As the superintendent, I think that should be an expectation, and that's certainly something that I would look to prioritize.
Thank you. What are some examples of community activities in which you have provided leadership, and in what ways did that benefit your district?
Yeah, the main one, and I have to talk about it and gloat about it because it's been just an awesome experience. We just passed in November of 2022. We passed a $555 million bond. And I was involved, I've shared this experience with others. That really started with a financial strategy that began back in 2016 when my boss and I and some board members were engaged in when is our opportunity and how much. And we knew 22 was going to be the year where we could go to the community and get significant amount of dollars without any tax increase. We engaged the community. We did a facility assessment, and I was part. It was a collaborative effort, but I was a lead in a lot of the areas. We brought together a facility assessment team in which evaluated our buildings with our partner Barton Mallow. And we did a full facility assessment. It was about a 60-member team. We went through that process. We used Epic MRA to do a survey of our district, our constituents, to say what's their tolerance for a new bond issue. And our hypothesis was that we were going to be able to get $200 and some million for a no mill increase, and we were going to work within the facility assessment to accomplish the goals set forth by the Facility Review Committee. It turns out there was a tolerance for a 2 mill increase, and so our board took that under advisement and had the courage to put that before the voters, and we passed a $555 million. It was only possible because we engaged all stakeholders. We had advocates, or we had people from each building representative on the committee, and we collaborated around the idea. We set the we ended up drafting what the bond application was going to look like, and we passed the bond by, I think it was 65% or so in November of 2022. That was a huge collaborative effort. How did it benefit our district? That is the exciting part. We are engaged right now in the process. We're engaged in the development of the projects, and our first one is building a new middle school. And to be able to vision with individuals on the next 50 years of public education is the most exciting work that we can do. And we believe, certainly to dream a little bit and to vision what that looks like and what a new building might look like and how furniture is going to affect instruction and how our playgrounds are going to provide outlets for students. That's been a powerful experience. So it's going to benefit the Troy School District for years to come, and it's all born out of a strategy that took about 6 years to develop and a lot of collaboration.
Thank you. Effectively and timely communication is vital to the success of a school district. Please describe the type of communication students, staff, parents, and the board should expect to receive from you.
Yeah, communication is paramount, and as a parent, I have expectations, and quite frankly, there's a tendency to flood our inboxes, right? So I think we need to really really focus on what we're communicating, how we're communicating it, and what media we're using to communicate it. And I think a multimedia platform is necessary. And I'm talking to students, staff, and parents. Okay, so with the board, let me just focus on that for a quick, just a quick minute. I think our board communication needs to be developed together. And the research I've done on all of you, I understand that you're all busy people outside of your commitment to this work, and I want to be efficient and effective with our time together. So I think developing a cadence of communication, a means of communication is going to be important. Certainly the superintendent doesn't want to annoy the board, and I'm sure vice versa. So we will work collaboratively on what that looks like and how that's rolled out. And that's part of my first 90-day plan, meeting with everybody, understanding your expectations. I've had board members over the years, a board president that said a meeting started at 6:30 and said, I'll be home by 7 o'clock to watch the Red Wings. So, okay, that was an expectation. I've had other board members that are perfectly comfortable having 4-hour board meetings. So I understand that managing 7 people's expectation on communication is going to take some time and take some collaboration. But as far as students, staff, and parents, I would look forward to working with the communications department here and our administrative team and understanding what our opportunities and challenges are with communications. I believe, and this is from a parent perspective, the most effective communications I receive are from teachers, right? I want to know what's going on in my kid's classroom. Second most is from the principal. They are the conduit to our, so what is our central office? And I believe part of our strategic plan, and I've said it already, we have to tell our story from a central office standpoint. We have to celebrate our successes, and we have to push that out through a multimedia approach. So I would look forward to engaging in that process.
Next set of questions are from Trustee Southworth.
Thank you, President Hill. So my questions are on the topic of political awareness. Superintendents are often faced with challenges of making decisions when there is no clear right answer, and members of the community are split on the right path forward. Talk about a time when you were faced with a difficult decision where you knew there would be a group of people unhappy with your decision, whichever way you decided. How would you go about making the decision and getting people on board with the direction you determined was best?
Yeah, I appreciate this question. A couple things come to mind, maybe more jestfully, as I coordinate, you don't know this, but I coordinate the snow day calls for the Oakland County superintendents, and it reminds me of every snow day call. So making those decisions, and even with the community, right? I always look forward to coming in on a snow day call and hearing the call that people aren't happy about it. So that's more jestful in nature. I'll spare you the decisions made through COVID too. I think that's an example of oftentimes, and you know this from your service, there wasn't really an opportunity to make a right decision during that, so you were making people upset. The one that comes to mind as I think about this, we have a unique transportation, a unique bell schedule in Troy School District. We have what we call a five-tier system. We have our high school start time. We have our middle school, 2 middle school start times. We have 4 middle schools. 2 of them start early, 2 of them start later. And then our 12 elementaries, 6 of them start earlier, 6 of them start later. That was born out of a necessity to reduce costs during the reductions back in 2012, the major reductions. So we went to a 5-tier transportation system, and that's how we accomplished it from a bell schedule. During that, the previous administration suggested that we would, in 5 years, we would flip the late start middle schools and late start elementaries to early. Okay, so it's a little bit convoluted because it's unique to Troy, but so we come in, and I think it was, 2 or 3 years into our leadership, and this came to our attention that it was promised that we would flip it 5 years. So now we're talking 16 of our buildings. Some of them were perfectly happy being the early start, and the ones that were late start were not at all happy. And they had an expectation that it was flipping. Well, when we investigated, there is a lot of logistics with it. There's a lot of finances with it. There's staffing issues with it. And when we really worked through that process, it didn't make sense for us to actually execute or administer this switch. So we had to bring people together, and you want to talk about, we're talking half of the people were mad, half of the people directly answering the question. It was a very, very contentious time, and there's still people that are upset about this. They view it from an equity lens, and it's been a challenge. But what you do, to answer the latter part of the question, is you have to stick to processes. There's process to decision. You collect information, you collaborate with individuals, and then you make a decision, and you communicate that decision effectively. We were able to do that, and not everybody. We have to, as superintendents, as Board of Education, that, as administrators, as teachers, we all have to understand we're not able to make everybody happy, and we have to be comfortable in that. We have to get comfortable in that space.
Okay, so my next question is, please share a specific way, or not please share specific ways that our district could work with other districts to support learning for all students.
Yeah, one, there's no secret, and there's really no unique work in this public education space. We have to engage with other school districts. I pride myself in being able to network. I pride myself in being able to develop relationships. Again, I've stated that a couple times. I'm a relational individual. But we have to come together as a school, a larger public education community to solve our larger problems. And as your superintendent, I would make a commitment to do that. We have to engage with policymakers. We have to engage with civic organizations. We have to engage with other superintendents, with state, local, or with local, state, and federal officials. And I have been blessed with the opportunities to do that. I currently attend superintendent legislative breakfasts. I was just there a couple days ago, and I've done that over the course of my time at Royal Oak and at Troy. So engaging with all different groups, and as it pertains specifically to other school districts, we have to look at peer districts too. Who's having similar experiences? Who has similar demographics? Who has similar issues as Bloomfield Hills? We have to engage with them. I would make it a priority to form groups with those other superintendents. I would encourage our boards to seek collaboration as well when appropriate, and our administrators. We are better. The public education community, which I'm passionate about, is better together. I truly believe that. Although we are going to be focused, and as your leader, I'm going to be focused on achievement and experience of students in Bloomfield Hills, I do believe our experiences and our achievement can help improve student success elsewhere. And sharing those experiences and learning from others that are doing it well is going to be extremely important.
Thank you. My last question reads, what impact has the use of standardized testing results had on our education system in Michigan?
Well, I view standardized test results as perceptive data, which is important. I do believe it's important because I believe it's a large portion of how people evaluate what we're doing. How are we meeting state standards? How are our kids achieving? What are their growth? What are the gaps? I believe that's all important. And I believe we will use that. And any data, for that matter, that is able to inform instruction and get down to the granular level to help inform instructional practices is helpful. I don't think standardized tests do that. I think there's too much of a lag in order for it to be useful in that manner. So therefore, it's more used for public perception, telling us how well we're doing or not doing as a state and educating our kids, telling Bloomfield Hills how well they're doing because of tests on a specific date at a specific time. So I'm cautious in using it I would be cautious in using it for more than that. However, it is important as it relates to making sure that people are comfortable buying a house in Bloomfield Hills and sending their kid to Bloomfield Hills. I think, and maybe going a little bit deeper into this, I think there's opportunities. I think our focus should be on what data do we have internally? What systems are we using? To get data more readily close to our classrooms to help the teacher inform their instruction and target interventions appropriately for students. So I think, and maybe, using, I see Portrait of a Learner, and I've seen it on the website, and I've looked at it, but evaluating us through that lens is probably more appropriate, and looking at our formative assessment data is probably a little bit more important to me than the summative piece.
Thank you. Treasurer Colin?
Thank you. Next questions regarding leadership attributes. What is the most difficult decision you've had to deal with in your educational career, and how is it resolved?
Difficult decision. I'm thinking, I don't know if the decision was that difficult, but the situation certainly was. I'm going to share a story because it was the most difficult experience that I have had, and I'll just name it one of the districts. We had a very prominent figure get into some legal issues that had to be investigated, and I was integral in that investigation, and it resulted in termination in charges. The individual was, as I mentioned, a prominent figure. So it came with, there was a lack of trust from the investigation. There was a lack of trust, and I had only been there 6 months. But there was a lack of trust overarching because this person was beloved, and it wasn't a difficult decision to get to press the charges and move along. That was the right thing to do. The difficult thing was to have information, and oftentimes this happens as central office administrators, as Board of Educations, we have an information advantage, right? We have more information than we can share oftentimes because we have to protect the dignity and the confidentiality of all of the situations. And so we were at a deficit from information sharing. So I mentioned earlier, when people don't have information, they make up their own stories. So between investigation to charges, it was a long period of time, 6 months. So there was upheaval in the organization. There was upheaval in the community. There was student marches on central office. There were parents stacking the board meetings. There was an intensity around this issue when we had facts and truth, and we were unable to share. We knew at the appropriate time the facts and the truth would come out, and they did. But the amount of healing that had to occur and the amount of time it took in order to do that, in order to restore our trust, and in order to restore relationships that were fractured, it ended up being quite, I told you I was there 6 months. It ended up, being a large part of the work for the remainder of my time in that district. And it was just an incredibly difficult situation. Decision wasn't that difficult, but the situation was. And we run into that. I know, through my research and through being a neighboring district that Bloomfield Hills has had some challenges and healing is necessary, and relationship restoration is important. And those are things I think, given my experiences, will be an attribute to my leadership.
What are the key elements needed to establish and maintain a good working relationship between you and the board?
Well, I think the key elements. I think the key elements of any relationship are built on trust and respect, and it's in my plan as well. I mentioned it in a previous answer too. I will spend considerable amount of time in my first 90 days cultivating a strong working relationship with board governance and with our working relationship together. So that's, and it's going to be one built on. I think the tenets of trust and respect are being authentic, being genuine, being honest. All of those things go into it. And I think, I certainly bring that, and I think there's plenty in your packet too. There's people attesting to my character and who I am and how I work. And bringing that to our relationship is going to be critically important. And I look forward to. I've worked for 3 school districts, several. I've lost count of how many actual board members. I have had excellent relationships with each one of them. I pride myself in that, and they have respect for me. I have respect for them, and it will be my work to make sure that we have a strong relationship built on those 2 elements.
How do you inspire and engage the entire school community in support of the district's vision and mission?
I think a lot of that I talked about in my long-term planning. I would love to lead the process of a strategic plan here. And I think about, how am I inspired? What matters to me? How do I get inspired to act? And some of the key tenets of that, you have to engage. You have to engage folks. You have to engage stakeholders in the process. You have to model the expectations. When I see my boss, I work for the best superintendent in the state. I'm convinced of that, and he models the expectations of the group. And it's powerful. And then you empower people to do the work. You provide them the development. You provide them you set the expectations collaboratively. And then you empower them to do the work, resource them to do the work, get out of their way and let them do the work. So those are, and then it goes to the communication plan as well. You have to be able to communicate it. You have to be able to celebrate the successes. You have to circle back, feedback loops, making sure they understand. Never lose sight of the vision. Never lose sight of the strategic plan. Continue to communicate it. Make sure it's in front of people, and just watch that. That's what's inspired me. And we are on our 2nd iteration of our strategic plan. And I can tell you, in Troy, people know it. People know the 4 pillars, we call them. And it's because we were intentional in engaging people in the process, modeling the expectations, and then empowering them to do the work. So it's been exciting. So that's a similar process that we would do to make sure that people are inspired to continue to do the work here in Troy. The work being making sure that our student achievement and student experience is as powerful as it can be.
Trustee Kumar?
Yep. So, Mr. West, I've got the next set of 3 questions on instruction and curriculum. So my first question, what experience and success have you had with closing achievement gap for economically disadvantaged and minority students?
Again, drawing on the wide array of experiences I've had with the 3 school districts, I can say it's much more challenging. Atherton Community Schools was had a free and reduced lunch rate of over 90%, so we weren't as focused on the gap as we were achievement, because the higher the achievement, the greater the gap. So in Troy, for instance, we're a high achieving, high expectation district, so our gaps require more focus. It has been and is a continual focus of our cabinet team, which I serve on. We are focused right now on what our multi-tiered systems of support are going to be. How are we going to deliver Tier 1 instruction differently? Making sure what data are we going to use in order to assess where our gaps are, and that's been a focus of our current team right now. I also serve. I'm one of a 7-member team of our equity inquiry team, and we are currently in our first year of our landscape analysis, and we've focused on belonging. And the student experience, and right now we're collecting data, and we're excited to move into year 2, but we're focused on this right now. So I don't have specific success. I could go back to Atherton, where it was such a small district. I was the grant writer. I was integral in building the systems of support with our grant dollars in order to improve, this was before the 3rd grade reading laws, but improve reading for our minority and economically disadvantaged students. But more relevant is probably my experience that I'm talking about here in Troy. So it's a current focus of our district. In education, the data, or the longitudinal data, is we have to wait a long time in order to see whether or not we're making improvements, right? And in some of the areas. So this would be a focus. This would be a focus of my administration here, is making sure. I did do some analysis on the gaps here, and I knew there's great opportunities to really focus in on what our instructional practices are, what our Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction is, what systems of support do we have in place, and worked collaboratively with our learning services team, our special education team, and making sure that we identify where those gaps are and what instructional practices we can put into place to shrink that gap.
Next question is, what is the biggest risk you've taken to do what's right for our children?
Biggest risk. Well, let me tell you, one of the most powerful things that I've experienced, when I was hired into Troy, I was handed a card that said, "Take a risk, dare to fail." That was the mantra of our superintendent in his opening year. Take a risk, dare to fail. So first, let me tell you, we have to create a culture where risk-taking is okay. That's where progress is made. That's where we can make movement. So that comes to mind first. We have to be risk takers, and that's not my natural instinct is to be risky, but I do think we have to create a culture where that's okay. To answer the question, though, what's coming to mind is we built a state-of-the-art 72,000 square foot preschool, and we did. That started also, coincidentally, it started in 2016, 2 years after I received this card of take a risk, dare to fail. Our superintendent, and it was part of our pillar work that we wanted to create a preschool, create high-quality preschool experience for all of for all of our community. So he comes into my office with our assistant superintendent of elementary instruction, and he says, we're going to build a preschool. I said, okay, how are we going to pay for said preschool? And he said, I trust you'll figure it out. And this is exactly how the conversation went. I said, whoa. So it ended up being a cool experience, but the risk was we were building a preschool on a build it and they will come strategy. That doesn't work for my background necessarily, but that was the direction. We closed the doors, the superintendent left, we closed the door, and we created a similar process to the bond. We collaborated, we identified a director that was going to be able to lead the work because the goal was to provide a high quality preschool experience. It wasn't to build a preschool, right? So we got the right director in place. Then we went to work. The financial strategy, which was primarily my responsibility, the board was open to some general obligation debt. However, we also sat on a lot of vacant property. So we developed a strategy where we were going to offload some of our vacant property. We were able to sell, I think, over $17 million worth of property. It was at the boom. We set new records for property sales and prices, and we generated about $17 million toward a $24 million state-of-the-art preschool. We opened that thing in 2019. We opened the preschool in 2019, and we had a couple hundred students in it. And then the pandemic hit. And the other goal was it was going to be self-sustaining. So we were going to generate enough revenue from the tuition to pay for the debt payment. And we opened the building in 2019, and then in March of 20, the pandemic hit. So the board was very comfortable covering the general obligation debt for a couple years. That place, it's a point of pride in Troy, and it's a point of pride of my work. It's currently over 600, I think 600 students and several different programs there. So it's been just a success. They have a fund balance that is appropriate. We are living into our second iteration of our strategic plan, and we have more kids accessing high-quality preschool than ever before. So but at the front end, that was an extreme risk that we took from a financial strategy standpoint.
Thank you. My last question, what do you believe are currently the biggest challenges with special education in our region, and how should these challenges be addressed?
Yeah, a couple things here when we're talking about our special education population. I think post-pandemic we're really seeing behaviors that we haven't seen. So identification of EI. Our EI population. Over the past decade, we've certainly seen a spike in our autism classes, and finding highly qualified people to fill those positions and then retain them because of some of the experiences is a significant challenge. The other, and that's more categorical rooms, if you will. That's the challenge that exists there. I think the other challenge that is worth messaging here is that we have to find a way, and this goes to the equity issues. We have to find a way to make sure that our IEPs tie to Tier 1 instruction and kids are in least restrictive environments. that needs to be a focus. I would be interested in sitting down with the special education department here and making sure that there is some cohesion and some coherence between our general education instruction and our special education instruction. We're wrestling with this right now as a cabinet when we're talking about economically disadvantaged and minority students too. We bring in special education and the access to the curriculum, and do we have high expectations for them, for our special education students? Do we expect high achievement? Do they have access to the same rigor? Do they have access to our Tier 1 instruction? And those are things that we're wrestling with. So, but they are challenges. So I think those two things need to be addressed, and we need to figure out collaboratively what is the best way to address those.
Board of Trustee Fowler?
Evening. Thank you for spending some time with us. I have a couple questions on finance. First is, how would you ensure that our district spending is aligned with our priorities?
I mentioned this long-term strategy of developing a strategic plan. Tying resource allocation to a strategic plan is a powerful process. And that's something that I think we need to do. If we're going to say, giving you the example in Troy, that we are focused on the social, emotional, physical well-being of all of our students, what does that mean from a resource allocation? How are we servicing those students? How are we going to accomplish that? Another thing is we are invested in the development of our staff. That's one of our key tenets. That requires resource allocation. What is our professional development model going to look like? How much resources are we going to spend in here? Now, education, it said we can't be that creative because we're capped at our foundation allowance times the amount of kids. Those are the resources we have. We're predominantly 90%, 95%, staffing and benefits. So there's very little discretionary. So we are a people organization. So when we talk about priorities, we have to look at people and programs. And because there's not a lot of discretionary to keep the lights on, and not to bring that up tonight, but we have to make sure it's aligned with our goals, our vision, mission, values, and goals. Setting down and doing that collaboratively, working with the finance staff, working collaboratively with our building principals, our directors, is important. Engaging people in the process is an important tenet to making sure that they're aligned. Communicating what it is we expect and how it is we're going to align the resource allocation with our priorities.
Thank you. Next question is, what opportunities do you believe budget limitations present? And in tough financial times, what are your top 3 priorities?
Yeah, certainly budget limitations present an opportunity to focus our direction, right? What really matters? What are we doing? Again, what is our strategic plan? Fall back on our vision, our mission, our values, our goals. How so when you're in, and I've been in the Great Recession. I've been a business official during the Great Recession. And in fact, it wasn't until 2020 that I felt like in the federal influx of cash, that I felt like we were really making progress. But so it is, the budget limitation does present an opportunity to really make sure you're focusing a direction as an organization on what really matters. So what are the top priorities? We are an educational institution. We are a learning organization. Our job is to transfer knowledge to our youth. And in order to do that, you have to have qualified staff. So the top priority has to be recruitment and retention of highly qualified staff. We cannot lose focus on that issue. As it relates to, so we also have to be transparent in the process. If we're going to have to tighten our belts, the community's going to have to know. We're going to have to communicate. We're going to have to be transparent in the process. So recruitment retention is a top priority. Operationally, certainly we have to focus on building energy efficiencies, energy usage, and then the sustainability piece, right? What programs do we have in place, and what might we be able to do less of? Or how do we do fewer things better? And so that would be all driven from what we set our priorities as from a strategic visioning standpoint.
Thank you. Last question from me is, please describe your experiences with millage renewals, bond proposals, and sinking fund proposals, and were these experiences successful? Why or why not?
Well, I shared the most successful one, which was the $555 million bond. But over my 16 plus years, it feels like I've been part of one of these three funding mechanism strategies. We were unsuccessful in Atherton with a bond proposal. So I have had that experience and taken away some learning from that failure. And one thing I guess I should acknowledge, I am acutely aware because we are going through the same thing that we have that Bloomfield Hills has a hold harmless and operation millage renewal that I think is going to come before you here soon. So I think part of my 90-day plan includes making sure that that's a success in August. I think it equates to over 30 some million dollars. So when you equate that over the 20 years we're going to ask for our constituents to pay for that significant amount of dollars, and it's exceedingly important. So I'm acutely familiar with and all of these funding mechanisms. We passed a sinking fund proposal in the first sinking fund proposal in Royal Oak when I was there. Again, we used the same collaborative process, brought community in, had an informational campaign, made sure people understood. And then in the bond proposals, I inherited a $125 million bond proposal when I got to Troy, and then we passed the historic one there in 2022. So I've had success in two of the three districts with passing these millages, being an instrumental part of the team, not only the information gathering, but engaging with community members in the successful passage. So I would look forward to strategically thinking with the board, strategically thinking with the community, engaging the community on what opportunities might exist here. I know there's a sinking fund. And I know the millage renewals are going to be before. I know we're 4 years into the 2020 bond, and those projects are well underway and successful. But future planning, because I plan to be here a long time if I'm the successful candidate, we would look for those opportunities, engage in strategic thinking around what those opportunities and when those opportunities may exist.
Thank you. Secretary Newell?
Thanks for the answers so far. And I'm going to ask you some questions on staff and personnel. So the first question is, how would you interact with other administrators in our district? How would you strike a balance between giving them the support and autonomy they need to lead effectively while holding them accountable as appropriate and necessary?
Yeah, it goes back to the inspiration, right? I'm going to model the leadership I expect. I'm going to engage with them. I'm going to walk beside them. And then we're going to set goals together, and we're going to hold each other accountable for them. I like to think that I do coach my three kids. I like to think I'm a player's coach. And as such, I'll be a superintendent that has strong working relationships with our administrators. Our district administrators are building administrators. We have some great building administrators in Troy. They are the conduit to our community, right? I am going to be visible. I'm going to be accessible to them and to our community, but they are the conduit in a lot of ways to our community. So we need to lean on them, and we do lean on them quite heavily to carry messages, to carry the strategic plan, and all of that, to really, they're closer to the work in a lot of ways. So empowering them to do the work, resourcing them appropriately to accomplish the goals that we've set forth, and then somewhat getting out of their way and letting them do the work, empowering them to do so is kind of the strategy that I'll work. Nobody likes a micromanager. I'm certainly not going to be that. I can delegate nicely, but we will be walking together in the work. I'll be accessible and visible to them, and we'll work together toward the goals that we set.
Thank you. Please describe your most successful experience in building a high-performing work team.
Yeah, this again is something I pride myself on, and I think one of the biggest compliments that we could have had in Troy is I have an interim finance director for obvious reasons right now, and it's a retired individual, and he's been with us a couple months now. He's told me a couple times, he said, boy, I would have never retired if I had this team. In order to build a team like that, you have to create a culture around it. And I think in my application, I'm very proud of the fact that I was named the 2016 Business Official of the Year. And I'm not so much egotistical about the award, but the meaning behind it was because I was able to establish a culture where people want to work. So I'm exceedingly proud of my ability to build teams. The way you build a successful team is you recruit talented people. I often, and it's really not a joke, but you hire smarter people and you let them do their work. And that's really the key to a success of any leader, I believe. I genuinely believe that. So I recruit. We find people that are humble, hungry, and smart. We develop them. We provide them opportunities for growth. And again, we get out of their way and let them do their work. And then we support them. We hold them accountable. One thing I'm very proud of, and Candace being the last one, every single one, I've been a chief business official my entire career. Every single number two, if you will, accountant, in some cases, finance directors and others have gone on to be a chief financial officer. So I attribute that to some of the culture that we've done, some of the development, some of the opportunities that we provide individuals, and they haven't only gone on to be take the first seat in the finance offices, but they've also been very successful. And I think that's the mark of good leadership. That's what we should be empowering. But as far as the other staff, I have a lot of direct reports, and I've had a lot of stability because I believe you create the culture where people want to come to work, and you recruit good people, and you let them do what they do best.
How would staff members in your district describe you?
You're not going to have to guess at that. I have put a number of nice letters of recommendation, but I think here one of my mantras really in life: nobody cares what you know till they know that you care. And I would say that people believe and think and would suggest that I care. I care deeply. I care deeply about them as humans, as people, as parents, as spouses. I care about them as an individual. And in my recruitment efforts, I don't much focus on that. I focus on their talents. and I trust that they're going to do the work. But then we develop strong relationships where we actually know one another, and we have a tremendous, I think I have a tremendous sense of humor. We bring lightheartedness culture to the work. I take I take the work very seriously, but not myself. I think I'm genuine. I think they would say I'm genuine. I'm authentic. And I'm honest. I'm a person of high integrity. And that's one thing, that's another mantra besides the one I just told you. I believe our integrity is the only thing we take with us. So it's imperative that we maintain a strong sense of integrity and are grounded in our own beliefs. And I think people would attest to that. And one of the best compliments I had, and I understand that the union's here and they can attest to it, our union leadership, our union president, I talked to him because I know unions talk to one another just to see what he would actually say. And you know, he not only endorsed me, but he said, you know, you're very trustworthy. So, and that's built on, you know, I think that's my reputation around Troy. And I would encourage anybody watching, any board member, you guys to reach out to board members over at Troy. Anybody reach out to your counterpart at Troy and ask them. And I think you'll find endorsements and attest to my character.
Thank you. So thank you for your responses to the questions we have prepared for this first round interview. We would like to take a few minutes now to provide you with an opportunity to ask any questions you might have for the board. And for frame of reference, there are 26 minutes left on the clock.
Excellent. Well, I will, I only have, let me make sure that's accurate. Yeah, I'm just going to ask one, and if one of you want to, or a couple of you want to answer it, that'd be great. What do you believe is the greatest opportunity opportunity or challenge facing Bloomfield Hills schools?
Well, there's so many, right? So how do you pick? So I guess from where we sit, I would say uplift the community with trustworthy leadership that, as you said, is continuous. There's been a lot of change. We are incredibly grateful for the interim leadership that we've had. Our interim leaders have done an excellent job. However, I think that someone in the permanent role to establish relationships that are assured are going to be long-term and just unify people. There's just been so much just leftover, I think, from the COVID era of negativity. And I feel that it's in a trajectory that is positive. I can feel it. But I think the thing that would really solidify that is a solid leader who can make relationships. Of course, there's a ton we're concerned about other things, worried about the budgetary implications coming our way and into all of public education and things like that. But just a leader who, inspires the community, and then for the staff is someone that they're excited to work for.
I don't like to usually be too playful with words, but I think, if you look at what we think is our strength, one of our great strengths, which is the many opportunities that we have in our district. We offer, from the different co-curriculars we have all these amazing programs. We offer pretty much anything under the sun that you can think of for a student to be able to find their passion and curiosity, which ultimately is what allows a student to be successful, is when they can latch onto something that means something to them. That's how they find that ability to be successful, because they're passionate about it. So we have that, but that often is a challenge, because when you have so many things, how do you provide alignment with strategic direction for all of those things? We have, just so many different things going on. Sometimes when I'm looking at updates in our board packets, I still find things I'm like, oh, we do that? There's so many different opportunities, but that's also a challenge. And so I think the opportunity here is to take that challenge and put some strategy behind it, put some direction behind it, This is the opportunity to take those different groups and get them aligned with, from the top, where are we going? What do we need to get there together? What resources are we showing that are successful? What are the ones that we need to talk about and understand a little bit deeper? And this is the time to do it. So yes, it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity to really get a hold of it and take us to where we need to be. You mentioned, Trustee Kumar mentioned, or maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. Somebody mentioned the strategic plan at some point, but this really is a time for it where we're not in peril, but it's a real turning point, I feel like, in our district where there's opportunity, but yet it's a challenge to get behind.
Thank you.
I'll jump in. I think what we need, in the last couple of years, there's been a significant positive turn. There's been a lot of turnover at the leadership, at the cabinet level. And what I think around the district, mostly from our staff and even our community members, is we need stability. So to lead, and I think in the last couple of years, and I've witnessed it, I've been the longest serving board member, I think as a group here, working with administration, we've seen significant change, obviously in our building infrastructure, but I think what we need is someone stable, building a team, a cohesive team, and then having that stability that's going to resonate with the rest of the community and the rest of the staff, and that's what we need.
Thank you.
If I could jump on to what our president and vice president and treasurer have said. We've got the building blocks in place. We've got the facilities. We've got the support from our community. We need to pull together a plan to continue on that positive trajectory and take Education Bloomfield to the next level.
Anyone else? All right.
Very much so.
We have 21 minutes remaining. Is there anything you'd like to add or conclude?
Yeah, I'll just conclude with the fact, again, thank you for the opportunity. I do really view this as perhaps a once in a career opportunity to lead an institution of high success, high achievement, high expectations. I believe my skills, I believe my experiences, I believe the opportunities I've been provided align with the opportunities that exists here. I can tell you that this is the only job, the only superintendency that I have sought to date, because I choose, we get to choose what we believe aligns best with who we are and the opportunities that exist. And I would be delighted to serve as the next superintendent of Bloomfield Hills Schools. This is about, I mentioned it once or several times, this is about generational impact for kids. I have a long career ahead of me, and I am looking to lead at a high level and make generational impact, have a positive impact on the next generation of kids. Having it be in Bloomfield Hills, where I know the resources are available, the success, the building blocks are there, that maybe some coherence can be brought to it. I think I'm up for the task, and I would be honored to move along in this process and then ultimately serve as your superintendent. So again, thank you all. Thank you all for this opportunity. I wish you the best. I have left you with my entry plan in both a written that has more details as well as a presentation format. I know that you have less than 48 hours of deliberation time. I encourage you to look at that along with the letters that have been in there that can attest to my work, can attest to my leadership, can attest to my character. And I hope on Friday you draw the conclusion that I'm worthy to move forward. So I appreciate your time and wish you all the best in your selection process.
Thank you, Mr. West. We appreciate your interest in the superintendent position for Bloomfield Hills Schools. We will be interviewing a total of 4, well, we've now concluded interviewing a total of 4 candidates this week. The board will then convene a special meeting this Friday, April 19th at 5:30 p.m. to determine the next steps for the finalist interviews. Following that meeting, Mr. Stein will contact you to let you know where you stand in our search process. Thank you for your participation in this first round interview. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right.